in Buckingham Palace crackled, not with the excitement of the upcoming autumn festival, but with a tension thick enough to choke on. King Charles, still battling the insidious after-effects of cancer treatment, was noticeably absent. A medically mandated rest, they said, perfectly reasonable anyone might think. But in the labyrinthine world of the British monarchy, where every raised eyebrow and stifled cough hold significance, his absence felt like a discordant note in an otherwise meticulously orchestrated symphony. The annual Autumn Festival, a glittering spectacle of royal pomp and political maneuvering, was designed to project an image of unwavering stability. Instead, it became ground zero for a silent power struggle. A chilling drama played out under the dazzling lights of crystal chandeliers. Hundreds of distinguished guests, from senior royals to influential business magnates, milled about, their polite chatter masking a palpable unease. Their eyes, drawn like moths to a flame, kept straying towards the empty throne, a stark reminder of the king's absence. Then came the announcement, delivered not by a seasoned palace official, but by a close aide to Queen Camilla, a man known only as the Messenger. His face, a carefully constructed mask of sorrow, declared that the king was experiencing serious complications and required absolute rest. The words, chosen with surgical precision, painted a picture of fragility, vulnerability laid bare. But the silence that followed wasn't just respectful, it was calculating. Politicians began their strategic chess games, journalists sharpened their mental quills, and royals exchanged anxious glances, each wondering what this meant for the future. Within minutes, whispers spread like wildfire, fueled not by the ravenous press outside the palace walls, but from within the very heart of the royal household. Rumors that the king was no longer capable of managing affairs, that his mental clarity had faded, that he no longer recognized his closest advisors. The narrative shifted from physical health to competence, and suddenly, the throne seemed to wobble precariously. And where was Camilla in all this? Radiant, poised, a beacon of calm authority amidst the swirling chaos, she moved through the crowds with effortless grace, her every gesture calculated to convey control. She spoke of Charles's health with practiced concern, but something felt off. A subtle crack in her polished facade, a flicker of something unsettling in her eyes. It was as if she wasn't just announcing the king's condition, but seizing an opportunity, carving out a power vacuum with the skill of a seasoned sculptor. The truth, it seemed, was buried beneath layers of carefully crafted pronouncements and strategic leaks. Camilla, the devoted wife, the supportive consort, was now suspected of something far more sinister, engineering a silent coup, exploiting her husband's illness to ascend to the throne. It was a chilling prospect, and one that sent shockwaves through the palace. The Autumn Festival, meant to celebrate the enduring strength of the monarchy, had become the opening act of a silent civil war. But there was one person who refused to accept this manufactured reality: Prince William. Ever cautious, ever reserved, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply amiss. The king's sudden decline, the lack of consultation with the heir to the throne, Camilla's unsettling composure, it all added up to a picture that simply didn't make sense. He knew he couldn't rely on the official channels, likely compromised by Camilla's loyalists. He would have to operate in the shadows, a detective in his own home, seeking the truth hidden within the palace's ancient walls. His investigation had begun, a solitary quest to safeguard not just the throne, but the king himself from a threat he could scarcely comprehend. Days before the Autumn Festival, under the guise of early morning calm, Camilla sat alone in her clearance house study. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the cold calculation in her eyes. Before her lay King Charles's medical report, stamped with the official seal of King Edward VII's hospital. The news was inconvenient. Stable condition, good recovery, no signs of metastasis. This infuriating stability was a direct threat to her ambitions. A healthy Charles meant a lifetime as the consort, forever in his shadow. Frustration flashed across her face, quickly replaced by a chilling resolve. The facts couldn't be altered, but the narrative could be. That afternoon, she summoned Dr. Julian Thorpe, Charles's oncologist, to a discreet apartment far from prying palace eyes. Thorpe, burdened by crippling debt, was a vulnerability she had carefully cultivated. There were no explicit threats, just a thick envelope filled with enough cash to erase his financial woes. Her voice, soft and almost empathetic, was far more persuasive than any demand. "We all want the king to have absolute rest, don't we, doctor? You know better than anyone that recovery isn't linear. Stability can be fragile." She paused, her gaze unwavering. "I simply ask that you refine the wording in the next report. Not a lie, just a clearer reflection of the complexity of his condition. Replace stable with complex progression requiring further monitoring. It's merely cautious." Thorpe's conscience flickered, but the allure of financial freedom was too strong. He understood the implication. This wasn't caution, it was a pretext. But Camilla's genius lay in making him believe it was for the greater good, for the king's peace. Armed with the doctored report, Camilla moved swiftly. She forged Charles's signature and canceled his schedule for the next month, including crucial meetings with the prime minister and diplomatic audiences. She justified it internally by claiming Charles had suffered a severe setback and was vulnerable to infection. All the while, she played the part of the devoted wife, seen entering Charles's study with official documents, emerging with a weary sigh about his unfinished duties. She had rewritten Charles's reality, transforming a recovering patient into a man on the brink of collapse. By manipulating words and records, she crafted the perfect backdrop for her power grab at the autumn festival. In her study, reviewing her speech for the festival, she meticulously erased any hint of a temporary transfer of power, replacing it with language suggesting a permanent shift. Every underlined word, every adjusted comma was a step towards her goal. The narrative that Charles had lost his capacity to govern had become an accepted truth within the palace. She ensured every aide, every secretary, every security guard heard and repeated it. But Charles himself remained the biggest obstacle. She entered his private quarters, finding him weary but lucid. He trusted her implicitly, especially during his treatment. Feigning concern, she embraced him, her voice dripping with artificial affection. She told him his latest health metrics showed a sudden decline in cardiovascular function, requiring immediate IV treatment and complete rest. "Just for a few days, Your Majesty, to stabilize." Exhausted and trusting, Charles agreed. Dr. Thorpe arrived promptly and administered the IV drip. But the fluid wasn't just vitamins and saline. Per Camilla's instructions, it contained a mild sedative disguised as a sleep aid. The dose was carefully calculated, enough to render him lethargic and disengaged for 48 hours. Charles closed his eyes, feeling a gentle heaviness spread through his body, mistaking it for the relief of rest. He had no idea it was the effect of isolation. Camilla removed his phone and tablet, citing the need to protect his rest. As she left, the light in his room glowed, but it was the light of a gilded prison. From her window, she could see Buckingham Palace, where preparations for the grand event were underway. The mask of solicitous care vanished, replaced by an eerie emptiness. "You should rest for a long time," she whispered, her voice thin but resolute. The scheme was executed flawlessly. Camila, the unofficial head of the kingdom, was ready to step into the spotlight. Back in the present, news of Charles's condition dominated headlines. Camilla, as the queen temporarily in charge, seized the media spotlight. But at Kensington Palace, William refused to accept this fabricated reality. He launched a covert investigation, tracing Charles's medical team and discreetly reaching out to retired nurses and lower-tier staff, people who might have seen original documents before they were altered. It was a slow, tense, and risky process. William knew he was being watched. He wasn't chasing rumors, he was hunting for tangible evidence. His persistence paid off when a retired medical worker provided him with a backup of Charles's original medical report. Stable condition, good recovery. The untainted truth. Next, he investigated Camilla's finances, uncovering suspicious payments to Dr. Thorpe just before the report's release, masked as charitable gifts. This was irrefutable evidence of bribery. The pieces clicked into place. Camilla hadn't just wanted power, she had orchestrated a false health crisis to seize control. This wasn't abuse of power, it was an internal coup. William stared at the documents, feeling the crushing weight of responsibility. Exposing this truth would shatter Camilla's reputation and shake the monarchy itself. In early October, William convened an emergency meeting of the Royal Council. He chose a rarely used room at St. James's Palace for absolute secrecy. He gave no agenda, only citing grave matters concerning constitutional stability. Before the council, a collection of seasoned aristocrats and former politicians, William presented his case with evidence-driven clarity. He placed the original and altered medical reports side by side. Then he he presented bank statements detailing payments from Camilla's fund to Dr. Thorpe. The palace fell silent. No one imagined the tragic narrative of the king's illness was a deception by his own wife. The council members exchanged glances, their initial skepticism replaced by quiet horror. They had been deceived. The monarchy had been undermined by a plot cloaked in care and loyalty. Outside, the world praised Queen Camila's leadership, but within the palace, a coup had been exposed. The bomb was set, awaiting only the final judgment from King Charles III. The meeting was not in a grand chamber, but in a discreet reading room where the air was thick with evidence and betrayal. The council members sat rigidly, their faces reflecting the realization that the monarchy teetered on a precipice. William stood at the head of the table, his tension testament to his resolve. Camilla entered last, clinging to her calm, but her eyes betrayed an anxiety she could no longer conceal. She knew the evidence William held, and her manufactured confidence had dissolved. She sat amid the cold detachment of those around her. As William prepared to begin, a side door opened. The room held its breath. King Charles III stepped in. His appearance was unexpected. He lacked his former radiance, his body gaunt, and his steps faltered. But each movement carried the authority of a king. His eyes, though weary, were sharp, sweeping across every face, lingering on Camila. Charles said nothing. He moved silently to the head chair reserved for the monarch and sat, ignoring all greetings. His physical presence, seemingly frail, overwhelmed every scheme and rumor. Charles gestured for William to proceed. Prince William recounted his investigation, detailing the tampered medical report and the suspicious financial transactions, to Dr. Julian Thorpe. Each fact cut through the room like a blade. Camilla sat motionless. Anger, frustration, and finally despair gripped her. She wanted to protest, to spin a defense of love and care, but Charles's gaze silenced her. She saw Charles, the man she had deceived under the guise of devotion, now listening to the account of her betrayal from his own son. Charles didn't interrupt William. He closed his eyes, as if absorbing the pain of personal betrayal. His reaction wasn't rage. It was the terrifying stillness of a man who had accepted a harsh truth. It was the shattering of trust, ruthlessly exploited. When William's report concluded, Charles opened his eyes. The room fell silent, awaiting the king's judgment. But Charles remained quiet. He raised a hand, signaling for his secretary to present a prepared document. Charles took up a fountain pen, his fingers trembling slightly, perhaps from illness, perhaps from bitterness. He signed the paper, each stroke of his signature carrying unyielding resolve. The simple act bore the weight of history, a silent, absolute verdict. After signing, Charles slid the document toward the council. They scanned it, and its contents sealed the Queen's fate. Revocation of all administrative, delegated, and governing roles of Queen Camilla. She shall retain only symbolic status as per constitutional requirements. The decree held no personal reproach, but it stripped away the very thing Camilla craved, real power. From the position of the king's representative, she was reduced to a hollow ceremonial figure. The implicated doctors, including Julian Thorpe, received immediate dismissal notices with no chance for appeal. Their scheme exposed, their reputations crumbled. Camila was given no opportunity to speak. She knew any defense was futile against the truth and the throne's supreme authority. Silently, she rose, avoiding William's gaze, avoiding Charles's, and exited through the same side door the king had used to enter. Her departure was a quiet collapse without fanfare, marking the end of a misguided ambition. That afternoon, Charles returned to his desk. His first act was to summon all documents Camilla had forged his signature on, to cancel schedules and issue administrative decisions. He began signing them anew, each fresh stroke overwriting the false ones. Every signature was a reassertion of sovereignty, a decisive act by a monarch reclaiming his power. Order was restored to the royal household. The throne stood firm, not through clamor or punishment, but through the exposure of truth and an ironclad will. As dusk fell over Client's house, only one thing echoed. The truth had prevailed, and Charles, though still frail, had proven that supreme authority remained in his hands. What do you think was the greatest psychological pressure Prince William faced while investigating and exposing his stepmother? And are you satisfied with how he demonstrated his resolve? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy.